Snow fell quietly over the streets of Cedarville, covering every rooftop and tree branch in a glittering blanket of white. Michael Thompson pulled his coat tighter, the cold biting at his fingers and cheeks. The town glowed with Christmas lights, wreaths hung on every door, and the scent of pine and baked cookies drifted through the air. Yet, despite the festive sights, Michael's heart felt heavy. The past year had changed everything. His family scattered, friends drifting away, and dreams put on hold. He paused near the old town square, watching children laughing as they built snowmen. A wave of longing washed over him, memories of better times colliding with the present. Deep inside, a small flicker of hope sparked. Maybe, just maybe, this Christmas could bring healing, connection, and a chance to rebuild what he thought was lost forever. Snow fell quietly over the streets of Cedarville, covering every rooftop and tree branch in a glittering blanket of white. Michael Thompson pulled his coat tighter, the cold biting at his fingers and cheeks. The town glowed with Christmas lights, wreaths hung on every door, and the scent of pine and baked cookies drifted through the crisp air. Yet, despite the festive sights, Michael's heart felt heavy. The past year had changed everything. His family scattered, friends drifting away, and dreams put on hold. He paused near the old town square, watching children laughing as they built snowmen, their scarves flapping in the wind. A wave of longing washed over him, memories of better times colliding with the present. Deep inside, a small flicker of hope sparked. Maybe, just maybe, this Christmas could bring healing, connection, and a chance to rebuild what he thought was lost forever. Michael remembered the holidays from his childhood. He had always loved the snow, the twinkle of the town's lights, the smell of fresh pine and cinnamon drifting from the bakery. His father, Jim Thompson, had hung the wreaths on the doors, while his mother, Victoria, baked cookies with Grace and him. Those memories now seemed distant, almost unreal. Jim had left town last spring after a series of disagreements with Michael, and Victoria had followed shortly after, moving closer to relatives in another state. Grace, only 16, had stayed behind, trying to keep the household together. With a sigh, Michael stepped into the square. The sound of laughter mingled with the soft crunch of snow underfoot. He passed the fountain, frozen solid, its statue of an angel crowned in frost. Children darted past, pulling sleds behind them, while parents waved and called out greetings. Michael spotted David Miller near the carousel, tossing a snowball with a boy no older than 10. Seeing his childhood friend brought an odd mix of warmth and guilt. It had been months since they had last spoken, both swallowed by the chaos of adulthood. "Michael!" David called, raising a gloved hand. His voice carried the same warmth it had always had, comforting and familiar. Michael forced a small smile. "Hey, David. Haven't seen you in a while." David came closer, clapping him on the shoulder. "Life happens, I get it, but you're back in time for the best Christmas Cedarville has seen in years." They walked together toward the bakery, where the windows glowed like golden lanterns against the snow. Samantha Sam Lewis, the bakery owner, was placing freshly baked gingerbread men on display. Her teenage son Tommy darted between the counters, humming Christmas tunes. The scent of baked bread and spices filled Michael's lungs, reminding him of simpler days. "Michael, look who's here!" Sam exclaimed, her cheeks rosy from the warmth inside. She gave him a tight hug. "It's been too long." Michael nodded, feeling a lump in his throat. He hadn't realized how much he had missed the familiar comfort of Cedarville. "Yeah, too long." Grace appeared behind him, holding a tray of hot cocoa. Her eyes lit up at the sight of him, though the strain of the past months was evident in her pale face. "Michael," she whispered,
voice trembling. "I didn't know if you were coming back this year." "I wouldn't miss it," he said quietly, taking the cocoa she offered. The warmth seeped into his hands, grounding him in a way he hadn't felt in months. As they sipped, Michael glanced around the bakery. Emma Carter, who had always been a constant presence in his life, stood near the counter arranging holiday treats. Even in her casual sweater and jeans, she radiated the warmth of the season. Seeing her here, in the heart of Cedarville, reminded him that some things, good things, could remain, even when everything else seemed to crumble. Over the next hour, Michael wandered the town square with David and Grace, greeting familiar faces, sharing laughter, and watching the children marvel at the holiday decorations. The town had come alive in preparation for the annual Christmas festival. Lanterns hung from every lamppost, ribbons adorned fences, and the giant tree in the center of the square twinkled with thousands of lights. Michael felt a strange mix of nostalgia and hope, as though Cedarville itself was reminding him that life could still be beautiful, even after hardship. Later, he wandered to the Thompson family home, empty and silent. Memories flooded in as he touched the worn wooden railing of the porch, the faint scent of his mother's perfume still lingering in the winter air. Michael allowed himself a moment to grieve, not just for what he had lost, but for the years he had spent away from the people that mattered most. It was then that he saw Henry Carter, Emma's father, shoveling snow from the driveway. The older man paused to wave, a broad smile across his weathered face. "Michael, just in time for the festival tonight. You've got to see the tree lighting." Michael nodded, appreciating the small gesture. "Thanks, Mr. Carter. I'll be there." As the afternoon faded into twilight, the sky painted in hues of purple and gold, Michael realized that Cedarville was more than just a town. It was a home. Despite the pain, despite the losses, there was still light, laughter, and the promise of connection waiting to be rediscovered. By the time the festival began, Michael was standing at the edge of the crowd, watching the giant tree flicker to life. Children gasped, parents clapped, and carolers sang with voices lifted high. Michael felt a warmth he hadn't experienced in a long time. He thought of Grace, Emma, David, Sam, and the countless others who made this town what it was. A community, a family in their own imperfect way. For the first time this year, Michael allowed himself to believe in hope again. He understood that this Christmas was not just a date on the calendar. It was a chance to rebuild, to reconnect, and to heal. Snow continued to fall, soft and quiet, blanketing Cedarville in white. And as he stood there, surrounded by the warmth of the festival and the laughter of the town, Michael Thompson felt the first flicker of true joy in months. This Christmas, he realized, could be different. It had to be different. The winter night wrapped around the town, lights twinkling, cookies baking, children laughing. Michael took a deep breath, feeling the crisp air fill his lungs, grounding him in the moment. Somewhere deep inside, he knew that the journey ahead would be challenging, but also full of moments worth living for. Cedarville had not abandoned him, and neither had the possibility of a brighter tomorrow. And with that, Michael took the first step forward, ready to face whatever this Christmas and this life had in store.
The morning after the festival, Cedarville was cloaked in a quiet, delicate frost. Snow still lingered on rooftops, on the branches of the tall pines, and on the sidewalks where footsteps had already begun to mark the day. Michael Thompson stepped outside early, drawn by the clarity and stillness of the winter air. His boots crunched over the fresh layer of snow as he made his way toward the town square, hoping for a brief moment of calm before facing the flurry of the day. Grace had already left for school, bundled in her oversized scarf and coat, her breath forming small clouds that vanished quickly into the crisp air. Michael paused at the corner of Maple Street, watching her disappear down the lane with her backpack bouncing lightly against her shoulders. He felt a pang in his chest. She was growing up so fast, and the absence of their parents weighed on them both. Turning back toward the square, Michael found David Miller waiting near the fountain, already waving. "Morning," David called. "Looks like Cedarville decided to sleep in today, but the bakery's open, and Sam's expecting us." Michael nodded, grateful for the familiar presence. "I could use some coffee." They walked together, and Michael noticed that the town seemed quieter than usual. The decorations still sparkled, the wreaths clung to doors, and the scent of pine lingered, but there was an undercurrent of unease in the air. He could feel it, unspoken conversations, worried glances, and a tension that seemed to linger in the edges of the cheerful scene. "Have you heard about the Thompson house?" David asked, lowering his voice as they approached the bakery. "People are talking about your dad, about everything." Michael's stomach tightened. He had tried to forget, to focus only on reconnecting, but he knew that whispers followed the Thompson name. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I know. Doesn't change much." Inside the bakery, warmth and light wrapped around them. Samantha Lewis was kneading dough at the counter, her hair tied back, cheeks rosy from the warmth of the oven. Tommy darted around with a plate of gingerbread men, trying not to let any fall. Sam looked up and smiled. "Michael, coffee's ready, and cookies too. My treat." She handed him a mug of steaming black coffee, and Michael savored the heat as it coursed through his hands. The aroma of baked bread, cinnamon, and vanilla filled the room, grounding him. They spent the morning talking with townsfolk who drifted in for pastries and small talk. The warmth of the bakery reminded Michael of what he had missed, the sense of community, the comfort of familiar faces, the rhythm of small-town life. Even with the shadow of the past looming over him, moments like this made the town feel alive, welcoming, and worth fighting for. By late morning, Michael decided he needed to face the Thompson house. The idea of speaking to his father, Jim, terrified him, but he knew he couldn't avoid it forever. Grace had managed the household in his absence, and he wanted to show that he was back, that he hadn't abandoned them. He approached the house slowly, snow crunching under his boots. The front door was slightly ajar as though waiting for him. Inside, the air was still and cold, the remnants of the past months clinging to the furniture, the floor, and even the wallpaper. Michael ran his fingers over the banister on the stairs, remembering moments from years past, laughing with Grace, helping Victoria decorate for Christmas, and sharing quiet nights, reading by the fire. "Michael!" A familiar voice called softly from upstairs. He froze, heart pounding. "Dad?" Jim Thompson, emerged from the hallway, his face lined with stress and regret. "Michael, I didn't expect you this early." Michael swallowed hard. "I'm back, Dad, for Christmas." Jim's expression softened, but remained heavy with unspoken tension. "I know. I didn't think you'd want to come back here." Michael took a deep breath. "I need to. We can't keep running from this. I want to make things right." The conversation hung in the cold air. Jim's eyes reflected a mixture of relief and pain. For a moment, father and son stood silently, the past year's fractures suspended between them. Then Jim gestured toward the living room. "Sit down. We have a lot to talk about." They spoke for hours about mistakes, misunderstandings, missed opportunities, and the weight of pride. Michael spoke honestly about the loneliness and the fear of losing family connections forever. Jim admitted his own regrets, his struggle to cope with the changes in the family, and the difficult choices he had made. Slowly, the walls between them began to crumble. Meanwhile, Grace busied herself with small chores, listening quietly as the two men spoke.
She felt a cautious optimism growing in her chest, a hope that perhaps the family could be whole again, even if only for a little while. By afternoon, Michael decided he needed to clear his mind. The snow had thickened, falling heavier now, the flakes swirling in the pale sunlight. He watched as the town carried on, children playing, neighbors exchanging greetings, and the soft hum of holiday preparations. Cedarville, despite its challenges, had a rhythm that reminded him of stability, of continuity. He wandered toward the schoolhouse, where he found Lily Anderson, the town's schoolteacher, helping students decorate the windows with taper snowflakes. "Michael," she called cheerfully, "just in time to help." He joined in, decorating the windows and laughing with the children. Their innocent joy was contagious, reminding him that even in the shadow of hardship, life could still bring moments of happiness. Olivia Parker, a neighbor's child, tugged at his sleeve. "Mr. Thompson, will you help me make a snow angel?" Michael smiled, bending down to the snow. Together, they pressed and shaped the snow into perfect figures, and for the first time in months, he felt light. The weight of the past year seemed to lift, replaced with the warmth of shared experiences, the laughter of children, and the simple beauty of Cedarville in winter. As evening fell, the town prepared for the annual Christmas Eve lantern walk. Michael joined David, Grace, and Emma as the streets filled with glowing lanterns, illuminating the snow and casting dancing shadows across the faces of townsfolk. The walk was a symbol of community, of hope, and of the promise of better days ahead. Michael watched Emma carefully, remembering all the times she had been there for him in the past, not in a romantic way, but as a steadfast friend, a reminder that connection could endure even in the hardest moments. Grace skipped ahead, laughing with other children, and Michael felt a surge of protectiveness and love for his sister. When they reached the edge of the frozen lake, the town gathered to release lanterns onto the ice. Michael held one in his hands, the soft glow reflecting in his eyes. He thought about the past year, of all that had been lost and all that could be rebuilt. Slowly, he placed the lantern on the ice and stepped back, watching as it drifted with the current, tiny flames flickering against the cold. The sight brought tears to his eyes. It was a symbol of hope, of letting go of the past, and of embracing the possibility of redemption. Jim, standing nearby, clapped him on the shoulder. "You're right, Michael. This year, we can do better. We will do better." The evening faded into night, lanterns lighting the ice, snow falling softly, and Cedarville shining in quiet, golden warmth. Michael realized that healing was not instantaneous. It would take time, effort, and patience, but the first steps had been taken. Family, friends, and community were starting to come together again, like threads weaving a tapestry of hope. Walking home with Grace and David, Michael felt the weight of the past lift slightly. The path ahead was not simple, but for the first time in a long time, he believed that they could face it together. Cedarville had reminded him that no matter how much snow fell or how dark the night seemed, light could still break through. Michael entered the Thompson house, looking at the warm glow of the fireplace and the faint smell of Victoria's baked goods lingering in the air. He knew the journey was only beginning, but he also knew that this Christmas, in this small town, surrounded by people who cared, he had found the spark that could rekindle his family, his friendships, and his own spirit. And as he sat down to enjoy the simple comfort of a hot drink and quiet reflection, Michael Thompson finally allowed himself to hope, not just for the season, but for the life that lay ahead.
The next morning arrived with a pale golden glow spreading over Cedarville, the sun barely peeking through drifting clouds. The snow from the night before had hardened into smooth, glistening sheets across the rooftops, and the frosty air carried a faint scent of pine and chimney smoke. Michael stepped outside his house, boots crunching sharply on the icy ground, his breath forming soft clouds. He had barely slept. Emma's voice, Grace's silence, and his mother's memories wove themselves into every thought. He walked toward town with a slow, careful rhythm, as though each step pulled him deeper into a past he had tried so hard to forget. Cedarville looked peaceful, almost untouched, but to him, every corner whispered something familiar, something painful. Near the bakery, he paused. The warm glow inside was unmistakable. David Miller was already rolling dough, sleeves pushed up, face dusted with flour, humming quietly to a holiday tune playing on the radio. Michael watched through the window, remembering the countless Christmas mornings he'd spent here with his mother, waiting for her favorite cinnamon pastries to cool before they walked home together. He pushed the door open gently. A small bell chimed overhead. David looked up. "Well, look who's up early," he greeted, smiling warmly. "You're becoming a regular again." "I'm trying," though his voice carried a weight beneath it. David slid a warm mug across the counter. "Hot cocoa. Your mom used to say it fixed everything." Michael's fingers tightened around the cup. The warmth seeped into his palms, but the ache in his heart only deepened. "I miss her every day," he whispered. David's expression softened. "Everyone does. She brought light to this place, and you inherited more of her heart than you think." Michael swallowed hard. Compliments felt too heavy to carry these days. "I don't feel like I inherited anything good." Before David could respond, the door chimed again. Emma walked in, cheeks rosy from the cold, scarf wrapped snugly around her neck. Her eyes flicked between the two men before she smiled gently. "Good morning." Michael felt something shift inside him. Not joy exactly, but a soft warmth, like a candle flickering in a dark room. He said, "Morning," quietly. Emma ordered her drink, then sat at a small corner table. A silence lingered between them until she finally lifted her eyes. "You didn't sleep well, did you?" Michael gave a weak smile. "Was it that obvious?" "You've always been bad at hiding things." Her words struck a tender chord. She remembered him, not just the adult standing there now, but the boy he used to be, the boy who dreamed too big and felt too deeply. He took a seat across from her. "It's strange being back," he admitted. "Everything feels the same, but I'm not the same person anymore." Emma nodded thoughtfully. "Maybe that's okay. Maybe coming back isn't about being who you were, but about figuring out who you're supposed to be now." Her sincerity almost broke him. They talked for a while about Cedarville, about Christmas traditions, and about the town's upcoming Winter Eve festival. Emma always loved these things. His mother used to bring her along when Michael didn't feel like going. As they talked, Michael loosened, slightly. The heaviness in his chest didn't fully fade, but the edges softened. After Emma left for work, Michael stayed behind, staring at the snow outside the window. Children were tossing snowballs, parents were carrying wrapped gifts, elderly couples walked hand in hand. The world kept moving, even when his hadn't. Later that afternoon, he walked to the old community center. The halls smelled of old wood, pine garlands, and distant memories. Grace would be here soon for choir practice. He wasn't sure if showing up was a good idea, but something pushed him forward. From the doorway, he saw her. Grace stood at the front of the room, organizing sheet music, her winter coat still hanging from one shoulder. She looked tired, older somehow, but beautiful in that quiet way she had always been. She finally noticed him, pausing mid-step. "Michael." "Yeah," he whispered. "I wanted to see you." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Grace sighed softly. "You disappeared last year. Everyone understood grief, but I didn't know how to reach you. I didn't know how to reach myself," he admitted, voice cracking. Grace stepped closer. "And now?" Michael looked into her eyes that once held a whole future for him. "I'm trying," he said. "I don't know how to fix everything, but I want to try again." Grace hesitated, but only for a moment, and then nodded. "Then start by not running this time."
Her words hit him hard. They weren't cruel. They were honest. Honest in a way he desperately needed. They talked a little more, carefully, gently. Nothing was solved, nothing was healed, but something new had formed between them. A beginning. When Michael stepped outside, the first snowflakes of the evening drifted down like feathers. The Christmas lights blinked softly in the fading daylight. For the first time in a long time, he felt something he daren't daft to feel. Hope. Small, fragile, but real. And as he walked home through the glowing streets of Cedarville, he didn't notice that someone was quietly watching him from across the square. Someone who would soon change everything.
The sun dipped early behind Cedarville's rooftops, leaving behind streaks of lavender and rose across the evening sky. Christmas lights glimmered faintly as the town settled into its nightly rhythm. Children scurrying home, shops closing their doors, and distant carols floating through the cold air. But Michael walked slower than usual, the weight of conversations with Emma and Grace lingering in his mind. Hope had cracked open inside him, but so had fear. As he crossed Maple Street, he felt a presence. Someone was watching him. He paused, turning slightly, scanning the snowy sidewalks. Only a few townspeople hurried by, bundled in scarves and hats. The wind stirred loose snow into tiny swirls. Maybe he was just imagining things. But then he saw him. Standing near the far end of the town square, half hidden beneath the shadow of a tall fir tree, was a man Michael didn't recognize. Broad-shouldered, wearing an old brown coat, and staring directly at him. Not blinking, not moving. Michael's heart tightened. Cedarville wasn't a big town. Strangers never went unnoticed. Something about the man felt out of place, like a forgotten note in a familiar melody. Michael hesitated, then forced himself to keep walking. He needed space, needed to think, but every few steps he glanced back. The man was still there, watching. Inside his home, the warmth brought little comfort. Michael paced back and forth, trying to shake the unease. Why would someone be watching him? He had no enemies, no debts, no secrets still left to haunt him, or so he thought. Suddenly, his phone buzzed. Emma, are you home? Michael, yeah, just got in. Everything okay? Emma, you passed by the square earlier. I saw someone standing there. Not from town. Be careful, okay? His chest tightened, so he hadn't imagined it. Michael, did he follow you? Emma, no, but he made me uncomfortable. That's not normal for Cedarville. Michael stared at the screen. The uneasy silence around him felt heavy, pressing. He typed back, I'll keep my doors locked, thanks for telling me. Later that night, snow began to fall again, slow at first, then thick and fast, blanketing the streets in white. Michael sat at his living room window, watching the flakes drift past the soft glow of street lamps. He should have been thinking about Christmas, about Grace's voice, steady and warm, about Emma's laugh at the bakery, about the possibility, however small, of rebuilding a life he had once abandoned. But instead, he kept seeing that stranger's cold, unmoving stare. Who was he? Why was he watching? And why did it feel like he wasn't seeing the town, but seeing him? A light knock startled him. Michael froze. His breath caught. Another knock, gentle, hesitant. He approached the door slowly, peering through the peephole. His heart dropped. Grace. He opened the door immediately. Grace. Is everything okay? She stepped inside, brushing snow from her hair. Her expression was concerned, but warm. I saw lights on. I wanted to talk, if that's okay. Michael nodded and led her into the living room. She sat down, hands wrapped around a mug of tea he offered her. You left so fast earlier. I didn't get to say something important. Michael's pulse quickened. What is it? She looked up, eyes soft. I'm glad you're trying, Michael. I'm glad you're here. I don't know what's going to happen between us, but I'm not shutting the door on you." Emotion burned behind his eyes. "I don't deserve that." "Maybe not then," Grace said gently, "but people change. And maybe we both needed to." Michael let out a shaky breath. Something heavy released from his chest. "Thank you," he whispered. For a moment, the world felt warm again. But then, a shadow moved outside the window. Grace noticed his sudden stiffening. "What is it?" Michael didn't answer. He rushed to the window, pulling the curtain aside. Nothing. No figure, no footprints, only wind whipping snow across the porch. Grace stood beside him, worried. "Michael, is something wrong?" He hesitated, then shook his head. "I'm just tired. It's been a long day." She didn't believe him completely, but she let it go. As she prepared to leave, she turned to him. "Be safe tonight, okay? Call me if you need anything." He nodded again, though unease prickled at his skin. When the door closed behind her, the silence felt different, charged, watching. Michael locked the door, then double-locked it. Outside, the wind howled softly through the empty street. But not far away, beneath the shadow of a street lamp, a figure stood motionless, watching his house. Snow piling quietly at his feet.
The next morning, Cedarville awoke under a pale winter sun. The night's snowfall had softened the world into a quiet white stillness. But when Michael opened his front door, that peaceful silence shattered instantly. Footprints. Not his, not Grace's. Fresh, deep, and clearly from someone standing at his porch for a long time. The prints led from the street to his front steps, and then stopped. No return trail, no sign of movement, just tracks ending inches from his door. Michael's stomach tightened. Someone had been standing there, watching, waiting. He stepped back inside quickly and shut the door, heart pounding. He leaned against the wood, breathing hard. Whoever the man was, he hadn't gone away. He hadn't imagined him. The stranger was following him, observing him, and now he was coming closer. Why? A soft vibration on the table made him jump. His phone. A message from Sam Lewis. "Sam, are you okay? I heard someone was seen near your house last night." Michael blinked. Word traveled fast in Cedarville, but this fast? "Michael, how did you hear that?" "Sam, Emma told me. She said the guy looked wrong, not from here. You should talk to the sheriff." Michael sighed and rubbed his forehead. "The sheriff," he muttered. Sheriff Daniels was good, but Cedarville rarely dealt with anything more serious than missing Christmas decorations or kids throwing snowballs at windows. Still, maybe it was time. He typed back, "Michael, I'll go talk to him today." "Sam, good. Don't let anything weird go ignored." Michael grabbed his coat and headed out, though a prickle of dread chased him. He didn't want to involve police, didn't want to seem paranoid, but the footprints were real. Too real. Cedarville Sheriff's Office was a small brick building near the edge of town. Inside, Sheriff Daniels sat behind a cluttered desk, glasses low on his nose, reading reports. He looked up when Michael entered. "Well, look who finally came home," Daniels said with a small smile. But the smile faded when he saw Michael's tense posture. "Something wrong?" Michael explained everything. The man in the square, the feeling of being watched, the footprints on his porch. Daniels listened quietly, eyes narrowing. "You're sure these weren't from someone delivering a package or passing through?" the sheriff asked. "There was no package, and the footprints only come to my door. They don't lead away." Daniels sighed, stood up, and grabbed his jacket. "Show me." When they reached Michael's house, the prints were still there, crisp and undeniable in the white snow. The sheriff crouched and examined them, frowning deeply. "These aren't from any boot brands common around here. Tread patterns different. And deep. Heavier guy, probably." Michael folded his arms tightly. "So you believe me?" "I believe something happened, but it may not be what you think. Could be a traveler, could be someone lost." Michael shook his head. "He wasn't lost." "Because?" "Because he was staring directly at me." The sheriff straightened slowly.
If this stranger comes near you again, you call me. Immediately. Understand? Michael nodded, but fear still churned in his chest. To clear his mind, Michael walked downtown, where Cedarville was alive with Christmas energy. Children dragged sleds through the streets, families bought hot chocolate from small stands decorated with wreaths, and music drifted from speakers attached to lampposts. But even the bright decorations couldn't shake the cold gnawing in his stomach. Emma spotted him from across the bakery and hurried out. "Hey, did you talk to the sheriff?" "Yes, he's concerned." Emma bit down on her lip. "Michael, this isn't normal. Cedarville doesn't get strangers just standing around watching people. Something's wrong." He nodded. "I know. Do you think he's targeting you?" Michael stopped walking. "I don't know, but he wasn't just looking around the town. He was staring at me, like he knew me." Emma shivered despite her thick coat. "You should stay around people today. Don't be alone." Her concern warmed him even through the fear. "Thanks, Emma." She squeezed his arm gently before returning inside. Michael headed toward the community center next, hoping to distract himself by watching the choir rehearse. The sound of Christmas harmonies always soothed him. But as he approached, Grace stepped outside unexpectedly, coat draped over her arm. Her eyes widened when she saw him. "Michael, I'm glad you're here." But then she noticed the worry written across his face. "What's happened?" He hesitated, not wanting to scare her, but he couldn't lie. "The stranger was at my house last night." Grace went pale. "What? How close?" "On my porch." Her breath caught. "Michael, that's not just strange, that's dangerous." "I know. The sheriff's looking into it." Grace stepped closer, gently touching his forearm. Her voice softened. "I don't want anything to happen to you. You need to stay safe. Promise me?" He swallowed. "I promise." She held his eyes for a moment longer before letting go. "The choir's about to start. You should stay with us for a bit. Be around people." He nodded. "I'll stay." But the moment he stepped toward the door, something made him freeze. Across the street, through drifting snow, standing half hidden between two buildings, he saw the man again. Brown coat, broad shoulders, unmoving, watching him. Watching only him. Grace saw Michael's expression and turned, but the man disappeared into the alley before she could see him. Michael's heart hammered painfully. This wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't random. He was being followed, and whoever the stranger was, he wasn't done. Yet.
The choir's voices drifted softly behind Michael as he stood frozen at the entrance of the community center. The warm glow of the building spilled across the snow, but outside, everything felt colder, heavier. Grace placed a hand gently on his arm. "Michael, what did you see?" He swallowed hard. "He was there, Grace, across the street, watching me." Her face drained of color. "Are you sure it was him?" "It was the same man. The same coat, the same stare. He knows where I go. He knows where I live." Grace looked over her shoulder toward the choir room. The gentle harmonies of Christmas songs, songs meant to comfort and heal, felt painfully out of place now. "Come inside," she whispered, "just for a few minutes. You need to breathe." Inside, the warmth wrapped around him, but his heartbeat refused to settle. Grace led him to the back of the room where the choir rehearsed Silent Night. The voices blended softly, but Michael heard something else, his pulse pounding in his ears, his thoughts racing like a storm. Why him? Why now? Why was a stranger following him in a quiet Christmas town where nothing this dark ever happened? He sat down, feeling the chair tremble beneath him. Grace knelt slightly, looking into his eyes. "This isn't your fault," she said gently. "Whatever is happening, you didn't cause it." He nodded slowly, though the uncertainty clung to him like frost. After rehearsal, Grace walked him outside. Night had fully settled over Cedarville now. Snowflakes glowed under the street lamps like falling stars. The streets were quiet, only the faint crunch of their boots breaking the silence. "I'll walk you home," Grace offered. "You don't have to."
I'm not letting you walk alone tonight, she insisted, voice firm but kind. They walked side by side, breaths forming small clouds. For a moment, the silence between them felt peaceful, until they turned the corner near Maple Street. Michael stopped. Grace stopped beside him. Because written in the snow, in large, uneven letters right in front of his path, letters that hadn't been there earlier, was a name. His name. Michael. Grace gasped and stepped back. No, 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 this is not okay. Michael's heart felt like it stopped. The letters were carved deep into the snow, as if someone had taken their time, kneeling there in the cold, etching each line, waiting for him to see it. He's not just watching me, Michael whispered. He's sending a message. Grace pressed a shaking hand to her mouth. Her eyes glistened with fear. Michael, you need to go to the sheriff again. Tonight, right now. He nodded numbly, but panic clawed up his throat. How close had the man been? Had he been watching from the shadows while Michael and Grace walked to rehearsal? Had he been listening? Following? A sudden fear washed over Grace. He could still be nearby. Michael scanned the street. Every corner suddenly felt darker, every doorway a hiding place, every shadow a threat. Let's go, Grace whispered urgently. They hurried toward the sheriff's office, boots slipping slightly on the icy path. Michael kept looking behind him, every few steps, every few breaths, expecting to see that brown hood again. But the streets remained empty. Too empty. When they finally reached the sheriff's office, Daniels looked up with surprise. Back so soon? Michael didn't answer. Grace spoke for him. Someone wrote his name in the snow, right where we walked, fresh, deep. It was him. The sheriff's expression hardened instantly. He grabbed his notebook. Show me exactly where. Michael and Grace led him back to the spot, but when they arrived, the name was gone. Covered, smoothed over by fresh snow, leaving only faint outlines beneath the powder. Grace's voice trembled. It was here, right here. Daniels crouched, examining the snow. His jaw tightened. Someone brushed it out. Michael's stomach dropped. He came back. Or stayed nearby, Daniel said grimly, watching. Grace shuddered. Sheriff, this is serious. Michael isn't imagining this. I know, and I'm not taking chances. He stood and looked directly at Michael. From tonight, you're not walking alone. Stay with someone you trust. Keep your phone on you at all times. I'll patrol the area myself. Michael nodded, though the words felt distant, muffled under fear. Grace reached for his hand. You're staying at my house tonight. Grace, I can't. Yes, you can, she insisted, eyes full of both fear and determination. You're not spending a night in that house alone while someone is stalking you. Michael swallowed hard. For the first time in days, he didn't argue. Okay, he whispered. I'll come. Grace gave his hand a small squeeze, but her voice was barely steady. We'll figure this out. You're not alone in this. As they walked away from the sheriff's office, snow falling gently around them, Michael couldn't stop looking behind him. The shadows felt alive, watching, waiting. And somewhere in the frozen silence of Cedarville, the man in the brown coat smiled. He wasn't done yet.
Grace's house sat at the edge of Cedarville, a cozy blue home dusted in snow, warm yellow lights glowing through frosted windows. It always looked gentle, peaceful, like a place where nothing bad could ever happen. But tonight, even the comfort of her home felt fragile, like thin glass shielding them from something lurking just beyond the light. Inside, Grace locked the door twice before taking off her coat. Sit down, Michael. I'll make tea. He nodded silently and sank onto the couch. His hand still trembled slightly. The image of his name carved in the snow wouldn't leave him. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw those letters, cold, sharp, deliberate. Grace returned with 2 steaming mugs and sat beside him. Her voice was soft, but her eyes were full of worry. "Do you want to talk about it?" Michael stared into the tea. "I can't shake the feeling that he knows me somehow." Grace frowned. "But you've never seen him before?" "No, not that I remember." He rubbed his forehead. "But the way he watches me, it's like he's studying me, waiting for something." Grace reached for his hand. "Michael, listen to me. We're going to figure out who he is. You're not facing this alone." Her touch steadied him, even if just a little. "Thank you," he whispered. They sat quietly for a few moments, listening to the soft hum of the heater and the faint sound of wind brushing against the windows. It should have been calming. It should have made him feel safe. But then, a sound. Soft. Barely there. A crunch. Snow. Being stepped on. Grace froze. "Did you hear that?" Michael's blood ran cold. He stood slowly, moving toward the window. Grace grabbed his arm with both hands. "Don't go near it," she whispered, fear cracking her voice. He gently pried her fingers away. "It's okay, I just need to look." Heart hammering, he peeked through the curtain. At first, he saw nothing but swirling snowflakes under the street lamp. The wind brushed 3 layers of snow across the ground. The neighborhood was silent. And then, he saw them. Footprints. Fresh. Leading across the yard, directly to Grace's porch. Michael's breath caught. He scanned the street, his eyes darting between every tree, every dark corner, every shadowed area. Then he saw a movement. A figure stood behind the neighbor's fence, barely visible, just a silhouette, but unmistakable. Tall, broad shoulders, brown coat. Michael's voice cracked. "He found us!" Grace's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh, God!" The man didn't move. He didn't run. He just stood there, half hidden behind the wooden slats, like he wanted Michael to know he was there, like he was enjoying the fear. Michael backed away from the window. "We need to call the sheriff." Grace grabbed her phone with shaking hands and dialed. "Sheriff Daniels? He's here. He followed us. He's outside my house." Michael could hear the sheriff's voice sharpened immediately on the other end. "I'm on my way. Don't go outside. Stay away from the windows." Grace hung up and locked every window in the living room. Michael paced, adrenaline flooding his veins. "Why is he doing this?" she whispered. Michael shook his head. "I don't know, but he's getting closer. Every time." The minutes crawled by. Michael kept glancing at the front door, half expecting it to burst open. Grace stood beside him, gripping his arm tightly. Finally, flashing lights appeared outside. Sheriff Daniels' car pulled up, tires skidding slightly on the snowy road. The sheriff stepped out, flashlight in hand, moving cautiously toward Grace's yard. Michael and Grace watched from the window. Daniels examined the footprints, then shined the light toward the fence. But the man was gone. Vanished. The sheriff searched the yard, the street, between the houses, but there was no sign of the stranger, only the cold, still air and the silent fall of snow. Daniels returned to the door, knocking firmly. Grace let him inside. "He was here," Daniel said grimly. "Fresh tracks, but he slipped away fast." Michael's chest tightened. How does someone that big move without making noise? Daniels didn't answer right away. He looked at Michael with a serious expression. "I don't know what this man wants from you, but this isn't random. He's not wandering. He has purpose." Grace's voice shook. "Sheriff, what do we do?" Daniels exhaled. "You both stay here tonight, together. Lock everything. I'll patrol this area every hour. If he shows himself again, I'll catch him." Grace nodded, but fear stayed in her eyes. After Daniels left, the house felt even quieter. The walls seemed thinner, the shadows deeper. Michael sat on the couch again, but sleep was impossible. Grace returned with a blanket and sat beside him. "You're safe here," she whispered, though her voice betrayed her doubt. Michael stared at the window, watching faint snowflakes drift under the porch light. "Grace." "Yes?" He swallowed. "I'm scared." Grace leaned her head against his shoulder. "Me too." They stayed like that, two hearts beating fast in the darkness, uncertain of what waited just beyond the glass, because somewhere, out there, in the cold, silent night, the man in the brown coat watched from the shadows, and he wasn't alone anymore.
The next morning, Cedarville lay beneath a soft hush, as if the world itself had paused to breathe. Michael woke earlier than usual,
unable to shake the strange weight pressing against his chest. The memory of the snow angel, the restored music box, and Lily's unexpected tears lingered like shadows around his mind. His mother was already downstairs, humming faintly, something she hadn't done in months. It should have comforted him, but instead it deepened the question buzzing inside. Why was everything suddenly shifting? Why now? After breakfast, he wandered into the hallway, where the attic door sat slightly ajar. A cold draft brushed his skin. He frowned. No one had been up there in years. He climbed the stairs, each creak sounding louder in the quiet house. Dust particles danced in the thin winter light spilling through the small attic window. Boxes were stacked everywhere. Old decorations, forgotten albums, childhood toys. But something new caught his eye. A wooden trunk, unlocked, half open. He knelt and lifted the lid. Inside lay letters, dozens of them, some addressed to him, some to Lily, and some to their parents. But one envelope rested alone at the top, yellowed and fragile, sealed with a faint silver snowflake sticker. His breath caught. The handwriting was unmistakable. Olivia Thompson, his sister. The sister who left Cedarville without warning. The sister who stopped answering calls. The sister he hadn't seen or heard from in 3 years. His hands shook as he picked up the letter. He sat back on an old crate and opened the envelope slowly, as if afraid the paper would crumble beneath his fingers. Inside was a single handwritten page. Dear Michael, if you're reading this, it means I still couldn't come home. I'm sorry. I know I hurt you. I hurt everyone. But leaving felt like the only way to breathe again. You always saw me as strong, but the truth is, I was drowning. Cedarville reminded me of everything I failed at. I never wanted you to see me like that. But I want you to know something. One day, when I'm ready, I hope this letter finds you at a moment when you still believe in me. Please don't give up on Christmas. Don't give up on us. Love, Olivia. Michael lowered the letter, chest tightening painfully. He remembered her laugh, her stubborn courage, and how she used to tell him that Christmas was the one day no heart should feel alone. But she had been alone, and none of them knew it. A choked breath escaped him, tears gathering at the edges of his eyes. He pressed the letter against his forehead, fighting the ache spreading inside. Footsteps sounded behind him. Lily stood in the doorway, her expression softening when she saw the letter in his hands. You found them, she whispered. You knew? He asked, voice cracking. She nodded, eyes shining. I didn't know it was inside, just that Mom kept them hidden, said she'd tell us when she was ready. Michael exhaled shakily, his heart splintering. Why didn't Olivia tell me? I could have helped her. Lily stepped closer, placing a hand on his shoulder. Sometimes the strongest people break quietly. The attic felt heavier now, colder, full of memories and ghosts. Michael swallowed hard. We need to find her. Lily's breath hitched. Do you think she wants to be found? He looked at the letter again, the shaky handwriting, the heartbreak between the lines. Yes, he whispered. I think she's waiting for someone to try. Lily's eyes softened with a mix of fear and hope. Then we'll try. He tucked the letter safely back into its envelope and closed the trunk. The decision settled deep in his bones, quiet, firm, unshakable. This Christmas wasn't just about healing. It was about finding the missing pieces of their family, about bringing Olivia home. As Michael and Lily descended the attic stairs, a new sense of purpose followed them, flickering like the first warm light after a long winter night. The journey to find their sister had begun. Snow drifted steadily through the dark as Michael walked down Maple Street.
his breath forming soft clouds in the cold air. The town had quieted for the night, lights dimming one by one, but inside him everything felt loud. Memories, fears, questions he had avoided for far too long. Grace had seen right through him earlier, and David's warning echoed louder than ever. Your father wouldn't come back unless he had a reason. Michael shoved his hands deeper in his pockets as he approached the old wooden bridge behind Cedarville Park. This place had been his refuge as a teenager, when his parents fought, when he failed exams, when he felt too broken to speak. Now, years later, the bridge creaked beneath him as he stepped onto it, just as it always had, like it remembered him. He leaned on the railing, staring at the frozen river below. "What am I supposed to do now?" he whispered to himself. "Talk to me." Michael spun around. Emma stood a few feet away, wrapped in her red coat, her cheeks pink from the cold, her eyes soft but troubled. She must have followed him from the bakery, or maybe she had been waiting, noticing the way he had withdrawn into himself again. "You walked out pretty fast," she said, stepping onto the bridge. "Thought maybe you needed company." He didn't answer, not because he didn't want to, but because he wanted it too much. Emma moved beside him, elbows resting on the railing. "You don't have to say everything. Just don't shut me out again." A long silence stretched between them, filled only with the whisper of falling snow. Finally, Michael said quietly, "He's back." "Your father?" He nodded. "Have you talked to him?" "No. And I don't know if I want to." Emma studied his face. "Michael, you've been carrying this hurt for so long. Maybe this is your chance to let some of it go." He shook his head. "You don't understand. He didn't just walk out. He left us when everything was falling apart. Mom was sick. Grace was confused. And he just disappeared." "I know," Emma whispered. "But people don't always leave because they don't care. Sometimes they leave because they're broken too." Michael let out a harsh breath. "That doesn't make it okay." "No," she said gently, "but it might make it forgivable." The word forgivable hit him like a punch. He wasn't ready for that, not yet. Maybe not ever. They stood in silence again, watching snowflakes land on the frozen river. Then Emma said something he wasn't expecting. "Your mom would want you to try." Michael's chest tightened painfully. "Don't." "She would," Emma insisted softly. "She always wanted your family together, even when things were hard." Michael closed his eyes, and Emma's words weren't cruel, they were true. His mother had been the glue, the warmth, the heart of their home. Even in her last months, she never let them feel alone. He missed her so much it hurt. "I don't know if I can face him," Michael whispered. "You don't have to forgive him today. Just talk to him. Let him explain. If you walk away after that, at least you'll know you tried." Michael swallowed hard. "Why are you doing all this for me?" Emma's eyes glistened in the moonlight. "Because you matter to me. Because Cedarville isn't Cedarville without you. And because I don't want you carrying this weight alone anymore." His heart stumbled. For a moment, he forgot the cold, forgot the past, forgot everything except her. But then footsteps crunched on the snow behind them. Michael turned. The man standing at the edge of the bridge was taller than he remembered. Shoulders slumped, face worn by years of regret. His breath came out shaky, as if he had been rehearsing 100 things to say and none of them made it out. "Michael," Jim Thompson said softly, "I didn't mean to interrupt." Michael froze. Emma gently touched his arm. "I'll give you two a moment." "No," Michael said quickly, surprising even himself. "Stay." Emma nodded and stepped back,
keeping her distance but not leaving entirely. Jin stepped closer, fear flickering in his eyes. "You probably don't want to see me." "You're right," Michael said sharply. "I don't." Jim swallowed, his voice trembling. I came back because I need to tell you the truth. All of it. If you can stand to hear it." Michael's heart hammered. Part of him wanted to run. Another part, one he had ignored for years, needed answers. "Fine," he said. "Talk." Jim took a shaky breath. "I didn't leave because I stopped loving you. I left because your mother made me promise to." The world seemed to stop. "What?" Michael whispered. Jim's voice broke. "She didn't want you and Grace to watch her fade away. She didn't want that to be your last memory of her. She asked me to take some of the blame, to let you hate me instead of remembering her suffering." Michael's stomach flipped. "That's not true. She would never." "She did," Jim choked, "and I was too weak to argue. I thought I was doing the right thing. I didn't know it would destroy you." Snow continued falling silently as Michael stared at him, breath frozen in his chest. He wanted to deny it, scream that it was a lie, but deep down, something inside him cracked in a way that felt terrifyingly real. Emma stepped a little closer. "Michael?" Jim's eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry for everything. I never should have left. I just didn't know how to stay and watch the person I loved most disappear." Michael's vision blurred. His mother, his father, the truth he had never expected. The pain he had carried for years suddenly felt different. Raw, complicated, heavy in a new way. He whispered, "I don't know if I can forgive you." Jim nodded. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for a chance to be your father again, even if it takes years." Michael's throat tightened painfully. He turned away, trying to breathe. Emma stepped beside him, her hand brushing his, and for the first time in years, Michael didn't pull away.
The wind outside Cedarville rattled the windows as Michael sat on the couch, staring at the flickering fire. Grace had left earlier, promising to check on the choir rehearsal schedules, and Emma had returned to the bakery for her evening shift. The house felt quiet, almost too quiet, but for the first time in years, Michael didn't feel completely alone. Jim Thompson had stayed. Not right in the same room, not trying to crowd him, but close enough that Michael knew he hadn't left, that he was here, facing what had been left unspoken for years. And while the pain was still there, raw and heavy, there was a fragile thread of something new weaving through it. Hope. Michael leaned back, eyes tracing the patterns of snowflakes against the glass. He remembered the letters from Olivia, the footprints in the snow, the mysterious man watching him outside, and the fear that had consumed him these past nights. But now everything felt shifted, as though a doorway had opened, and he had a choice to step through it or remain trapped. Jim cleared his throat softly. "I don't expect you to forgive me tonight," he said, voice low. I want to be honest. I want you to know why I left, and I want you to know that I'm here now." Michael's hands tightened in his lap. "I can explain all you want, but it doesn't undo what happened. It doesn't change the years we lost." Jim nodded, accepting it. "I know. I just want to try, if you let me." A long silence passed, filled with the crackle of fire and the occasional gust of wind against the house. Michael's gaze drifted to the window again, to the soft glow of Christmas lights along the street, the laughter of children, distant but familiar. The town, despite everything, was still alive, still warm, still capable of light. I don't know if I can forgive you," Michael said finally, "but I can start by listening, and I can start by letting you back in, carefully." Jim's eyes softened, and he nodded slowly. "That's all I ask, step by step." The snow continued to fall outside, thick and silent, covering Cedarville in its glittering blanket of snow and light. Michael realized that even with fear and uncertainty around him, even with the shadows of the past, this Christmas Eve carried a different weight. It wasn't about perfection or fixing everything in one night. It was about presence, about family, about the fragile possibility of rebuilding. Emma returned, carrying a small tray with cocoa and gingerbread cookies. "I brought reinforcements," she said with a soft smile, glancing between Michael and Jim. Michael allowed himself a small, almost shy smile. "Thanks." Grace appeared soon after. Cheeks flushed from the cold, eyes bright. "I thought I'd check on you," she said, voice gentle. "It feels strange, all of us here." Michael nodded, looking at the group. His family, his friends, the people who had stayed. It wasn't complete yet, not by a long shot, but it was a beginning. Jim reached out tentatively. He asked, "May I?" Michael hesitated, then allowed him to sit closer, placing a hand on Michael's shoulder. The warmth was quiet, but steady, grounding him in the moment. Christmas isn't about forgetting the pain. It's about finding a way forward despite it. Michael nodded, finally allowing himself to breathe. The snow continued to fall outside, silent and gentle, and for the first time in years, he felt like maybe, just maybe, he could begin to heal. The fire crackled, the wind whispered through the trees, and Cedarville, wrapped in its glittering blanket of snow and light, seemed to hold its breath with them, waiting, watching, giving them a chance to reclaim what had been lost. This Christmas Eve, Michael realized, wasn't about magic or miracles. It was about promises, the kind you make to yourself, the kind you make to others, the kind that quietly rebuild hearts one fragile piece at a time. And tonight, he made a promise to try. The morning after Christmas Eve dawned bright and clear, though the chill of winter still clung stubbornly to Cedarville. Michael woke to a soft blanket of snow outside his window, the sun glinting on rooftops and trees dusted and glittering white. He could hear the faint hum of activity in town, the baker setting up his shop, children dragging sleds across the snow-covered streets, and distant carolers' voices floating through the cold air. For a moment, Michael allowed himself a deep breath. Yesterday's conversations with Jim, Emma, and Grace had shifted something inside him. A small part of the heavy knot of guilt and pain that had sat in his chest for years seemed lighter, but as he stretched and glanced toward the window, unease returned like a shadow creeping back into sunlight. Across the street, between the flickering glow of lampposts and the glitter of holiday lights, Michael thought he saw it, a dark shape moving just out of focus. He squinted, trying to convince himself it was nothing, perhaps a neighbor walking to work or a passing dog. But then the shape froze, a figure in a brown coat, broad shoulders, unmoving, watching. Michael's breath caught. He backed away from the window and turned sharply toward the front door. Heart hammering, he gripped the doorknob and twisted it slowly, peeking outside. Nothing. The snow glimmered peacefully under the morning sun. Footprints, if there had been any, were obscured by fresh snowfall. Still, the feeling of being watched didn't leave him, not for a second. He took a deep breath and stepped outside, boots crunching on the crisp snow. He needed clarity, needed to move, needed to shake the invisible weight pressing against his chest. Grace appeared at the corner of the driveway, her scarf wrapped tightly around her neck, eyes bright with concern. "You're up early," she said softly, reading the tension in his posture immediately. "Is everything okay?" Michael shook his head. "I think he's back. The man I saw last week, the one watching me outside Grace's house, I think he's still here." Grace's expression hardened. "Michael, we need to call the sheriff. He can't be allowed to linger." Michael hesitated. Part of him wanted to hide, retreat, and pretend it wasn't happening, but another part, something stubborn and defiant, wanted to face it. "We can't just wait. We need to find out who he is before it escalates." Grace nodded. "Then we do it together." They walked slowly down the snow-lined streets, eyes scanning every shadow, every corner, every flickering strand of Christmas lights. The town glowed with festive cheer, but it felt like a mask over something darker lurking beneath. The faint jingling of bells from a nearby shop seemed distant and unnatural. Michael's hands clenched in his coat pockets as he scanned the familiar surroundings with new suspicion. This wasn't Cedarville as he remembered it. Something had shifted. Then a sound, soft, deliberate, echoed through the still morning. Footsteps in the snow. He froze. Grace tightened her grip on his arm. From behind a row of lit-up pine trees, the figure emerged. Broad brown coat. The stranger's gaze fixed directly on Michael. Not wandering, not passing, watching. Michael's heart raced, but this time he didn't retreat. Instead, he stepped forward, feeling a surge of something unfamiliar. Courage. "Who are you? Why are you following me?" Michael demanded, voice firm despite the fear in his chest. The eyes flickered briefly with surprise, or was it recognition? And then the man spoke, voice low and cold. "You're ready to see the truth," he said. Michael's brows furrowed. "The truth? What truth?" The stranger took a slow step closer, snow crunching under his boots. "Not everything your father told you, not everything your family wanted you to know, is real. There are pieces missing, and I'm here to make sure you see them before it's too late." Grace gasped and grabbed Michael's hand. "Michael, be careful. Don't trust him." But Michael shook his head slightly. Something in the man's tone rang true. Terrifying, yes, but undeniably true. "Then tell me," Michael said, trying to steady his voice. "Start talking." The man took another step forward, snow drifting around him like frozen sparks. "This Christmas," he said slowly, "everything you thought you knew about your family, about Cedarville, and about the choices that shaped your life is going to change, and it begins tonight." Michael's stomach dropped. Change. The word echoed in his mind. Not just healing, not just forgiveness, but revelation. Something he had never expected. Something that could either shatter everything or finally put the pieces together. Grace tightened her grip on his hand again. "Michael," she whispered. He met her eyes, saw the fear mirrored there, and then turned back to the stranger. "I'm ready," he said. The man nodded once, a faint shadow of a smile crossing his features. "Good. Then let's begin." And somewhere, Behind the twinkling holiday lights, the snow-laden streets of Cedarville held their breath, because this Christmas, nothing would be the same. Night had fallen over Cedarville, and the town glowed under the warm light of Christmas decorations. The streets, usually bustling with holiday shoppers, were now quiet, coated in a blanket of fresh snow. The silence was comforting to some, but to Michael it was heavy, almost suffocating. Every shadow seemed to stretch farther than it should. Every gust of wind carried the echo of the stranger's words. Grace stayed close, her hand gripping his as they moved toward the outskirts of town, where the figure had led them earlier. Michael's heart thumped with a mixture of dread and anticipation. For years, he had avoided confronting the hidden truths about his family, about the people he thought he knew. Now, the stranger promised answers, but at what cost? The figure stopped near the old Miller property, a vacant house long rumored to be abandoned. Its windows were dark, and icicles hung from the eaves like frozen daggers. The stranger turned to Michael, eyes glinting in the dim light. "Everything starts here," he said. Michael hesitated. "Why here?" "This house holds what your family buried. Memories, lies, truths they couldn't face. If you want to understand, you must see for yourself." Grace's grip tightened. "Michael, be careful." He nodded, though fear gnawed at him. Together, they stepped closer to the house. The door creaked open with a push, revealing darkness inside. Michael swallowed, steeling himself against the unknown. The stranger motioned for him to enter. "It's all here, what you've been missing, what you didn't know you needed to see." Inside, the air smelled of dust and cold wood. Shadows danced along the walls from the flashlight the stranger carried. Michael's gaze fell on a series of old photographs pinned to a corkboard, images of his family, smiling faces frozen in time, but with subtle hints of tension and secrets behind their eyes. "Your father wasn't the only one carrying burdens," the man said softly. "Your mother hid truths to protect you, but some things can't stay hidden forever. Tonight, they will be revealed." Michael's stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" The stranger handed him a small box, its surface worn and dusted with frost. "Open it." Michael's fingers trembled as he lifted the lid. Inside were letters, journals, and documents. Some in his mother's handwriting, others in his father's. Each one told a story he had never known. Sacrifices, mistakes, hidden decisions, and promises kept in silence. As he read, a flood of emotion hit him. Anger, sorrow, and a strange relief. The truths were painful, yes, but they explained years of confusion, abandonment, and misunderstandings. Grace leaned close. "Michael, it's a lot to take in." He nodded, tears stinging his eyes. "I know, but it feels like I can finally breathe." The stranger watched silently, his presence steady but unobtrusive. Understanding the past is the first step toward rebuilding the future. Michael closed the box, heart heavy yet lighter than it had been in years. He looked at Grace, who smiled gently, her presence a comforting anchor. "We'll face this together," she said. Outside, the snow continued to fall, covering Cedarville in a silent, sparkling blanket. Inside, Michael understood that Christmas had brought him more than gifts or celebrations. It had brought truth, reconciliation, and the fragile beginnings of hope. And as he stepped out into the night, the cold air biting at his cheeks, he felt something he hadn't in years, a sense that maybe, just maybe, everything could be made right again.
Cedarville woke to another morning of sparkling snow. The town glimmered under a pale winter sun, each roof, tree, and street corner coated and glittering white. Michael and Grace walked slowly through the quiet streets, their footsteps soft against the fresh powder.
The events at the old Miller house the night before had left them both shaken, yet strangely lighter, as though unveiling the hidden truths had lifted an invisible weight. Michael clutched the box of letters, still heavy with his parents' words. Each letter was a puzzle piece, revealing sacrifices, regrets, and the reasoning behind choices he had never understood. Some pages were filled with apologies, others with gentle reminders of love that had been buried under years of fear and pride. "Do you think we'll ever be the same?" Grace asked softly, glancing at him. Michael shook his head. "No, but maybe we can be better, stronger, together." They reached the town square where the Christmas tree stood proudly, its lights blinking in rhythm with the distant sound of carolers. Children skated on the frozen pond, their laughter crisp and infectious. For a moment, Michael allowed himself to feel joy, to remember the warmth of past Christmases before loss and fear had clouded them. "Michael," Grace said softly, her voice hesitant. "What about him? The man watching you? The stranger?" Michael's jaw tightened. "I don't know. He didn't harm us. He guided me to the truth. But I can't forget him, or what he represents. Something tells me this isn't over yet." Grace nodded, understanding the unspoken fear that lingered in his eyes. "Then we face it when it comes." As they continued walking, Michael felt a faint tug in his heart, a reminder that some mysteries could only be solved with courage and patience. The stranger had revealed truths, but he had also ignited questions. Why had he chosen Cedarville? Why now? And most importantly, what else lay hidden beneath the snow, waiting to surface? The box of letters felt warmer in Michael's hands, almost alive with history and unspoken emotions. He knew the path ahead wouldn't be easy, that uncovering the past would continue to challenge him and those he loved. But for the first time, he felt ready to confront the shadows, ready to embrace the pain, and ready to rebuild the fragile bonds of family. The snowflakes danced around him, catching the sunlight like tiny stars. Cedarville's streets were peaceful, yet the quiet held a promise that the past could be understood, the present could be cherished, and the future could be shaped by the choices he made today. Michael looked at Grace, gratitude softening the edges of his fear. "We'll do this together," he said. "Yes," she replied firmly. "Together." And in that moment, the weight of years began to lift, replaced with the fragile hope that Christmas, in all its quiet magic, could heal even the deepest wounds. The following evening, Cedarville glowed beneath the soft illumination of countless Christmas lights. The snow, still fresh from the previous night, muffled every sound except the occasional laughter of children sledding down small hills or the distant bark of a dog. Michael walked slowly toward his family's old home, the box of letters tucked securely under his arm. Grace followed closely, her scarf brushing against his sleeve, the warmth of her presence steadying him. Inside, the house felt familiar yet foreign. Dust-covered shelves that hadn't been touched in years, and faded photographs lined the walls, each frame a frozen memory of holidays past. Michael paused near the Christmas tree in the living room, its ornaments dulled by age but still glittering faintly in the dim lamplight. One ornament caught his eye, a small hand-painted globe that had belonged to his mother. It had always been his favorite. He picked it up, running his fingers over the delicate surface. Beneath it, tucked in the branches, was a note in her familiar handwriting. "To Michael, may you always find your way home." His chest tightened. The words were simple, yet they carried the weight of love and longing, a message he had never fully understood until now. He realized that his mother had left him more than letters and memories. She had left him guidance, a compass to navigate the shadows of their family's past. Grace stepped beside him, her voice gentle. "She wanted you to find these things when you were ready.
Michael nodded, a lump forming in his throat. "I think I'm finally ready," he whispered. As he carefully replaced the ornament, a sound made him freeze, a soft creak from the attic stairs. He wasn't alone. Grace noticed his sudden tension. "Michael?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He shook his head, gripping the box tighter. The past weeks had prepared him for fear, for unexpected encounters, for shadows that lingered just beyond the light. But this was different. Slowly they ascended the stairs, each step groaning under their weight. The attic door, slightly ajar, revealed only darkness. Michael's flashlight cut through the gloom, revealing boxes, old trunks, and forgotten decorations. Then he saw it, a small, weathered trunk he had never noticed before. Its lock was old, rusted, and fragile. Michael knelt, heart pounding, and lifted the lid. Inside were items he didn't recognize. Photographs of strangers, folded letters in unfamiliar handwriting, and a bundle of tiny objects wrapped in faded cloth. Among them, a single note caught his eye. It read, "Michael, the answers you seek are closer than you think. Trust your heart, even when fear whispers otherwise." He looked up at Grace, who nodded softly. "It's from her. She wanted you to find these things." Michael's hands shook as he carefully unfolded the bundle, revealing more letters, each one weaving a story that connected the past to the present. The truth about his family, the mistakes, the secrets, and the choices, all of it was laid bare, waiting for him to face it. For the first time in weeks, Michael felt a strange clarity. The stranger, the footprints, the fear, they had all led him here, not to punishment or danger, but to understanding, to the knowledge that healing wasn't just about forgiving others, it was about forgiving himself. As snow fell silently outside, Michael held the letters close, feeling the weight of his family's history and the promise of a future where he could finally breathe. Grace stood beside him, her presence a reminder that he wasn't alone, that the journey forward would be shared. And for the first time in years, the house felt warm, full of hope, and alive with the magic of Christmas, both past and yet to come.
The morning after their discovery in the attic, Michael awoke to the quiet hum of Cedarville, the town blanketed in fresh, glistening snow. The streets were nearly empty, the air crisp, carrying the faint scent of pine and wood smoke from chimneys. Michael stretched and glanced toward the box of letters beside his bed. Each letter felt like a thread connecting him to his family's past, revealing truths he had never dared confront before. Grace knocked gently at his door before entering, carrying a thermos of hot cocoa. "Morning," she said softly. "I thought you might need this." Michael smiled faintly. "Thanks, I couldn't sleep. Too many thoughts running through my head." She handed him the thermos and sat on the edge of the bed. "I know it's a lot, but you're not alone in this. We'll figure it out. Together." He nodded, feeling the warmth of both the cocoa and her words. After breakfast, Michael and Grace decided to take a walk through the snow-covered paths near Cedarville Park. The fresh snowfall muffled their steps, making the world seem peaceful, almost suspended in time. Yet Michael's mind was filled with the questions the letters had raised. Why had his mother hidden certain truths? Why had his father disappeared for so long? And what more had the stranger meant when he said the answers were closer than you think? As they walked, Michael noticed something odd, a trail of footprints leading away from the main path, partially covered by fresh snow but still visible. He paused. "Do you see that?" he asked, pointing to the footprints. Grace followed his gaze. "Yes. Should we follow them?" Michael hesitated. Something deep in his chest told him these footprints were more than random. Perhaps they were another clue, another piece of the puzzle his family had left behind. He nodded. Let's see where they lead. The footprints led them through the park, across a frozen pond, and toward the edge of the woods. The deeper they went, the quieter the world became, until only the soft crunch of snow under their boots broke the silence. Suddenly, they reached a clearing where the footprints stopped. In the center stood a small, snow-covered box, partially hidden beneath a thin layer of frost. Michael bent down and brushed the snow away, revealing a carved wooden chest with intricate patterns etched into its surface. Grace's eyes widened. It's beautiful, but why here? Michael shook his head. I don't know, but I have a feeling this is important. He lifted the lid slowly. Inside were objects that once belonged to his parents. An old watch, a locket, and a stack of photographs, some he had never seen before. Each item seemed to tell a story, revealing the quiet moments of love, struggle, and sacrifice that had shaped his family. Then he noticed something at the bottom of the box, a small, folded piece of paper. He opened it carefully. Michael, the path ahead will not be easy, but every step you take brings you closer to understanding, to healing, and to those who truly care for you. Follow your heart, and you will find what you seek. Michael's breath caught. He looked at Grace. This is from her, isn't it? From Mom? Grace nodded. She wanted you to see this, to know the truth in her own way. She believed you were ready. Michael held the note close to his chest, feeling both the weight of the past and the hope of the future. For the first time, the snow around him didn't feel cold. It felt alive, carrying whispers of memories, love, and the promise of new beginnings. They stayed in the clearing for a while, letting the stillness of the snow and the serenity of the woods sink in. Michael realized that the journey to understand his family, to forgive and to rebuild had only just begun, but he no longer feared it. With Grace by his side, he felt ready to face whatever truths remained hidden beneath the snow, whatever shadows lingered, and whatever challenges awaited. This Christmas, he knew, wasn't just about celebration. It was about courage, discovery, and the quiet magic of following the path home. Snow fell gently over Cedarville, soft and steady, blanketing the town in a quiet glow. The streets shimmered under the twinkling Christmas lights, and the scent of pine and baked cookies drifted through the air. For the first time in weeks, Michael walked through the town square without fear or worry pressing on his chest. The shadows that had haunted him, the stranger, the unanswered questions, the hidden truths, had finally been faced. The letters, the attic discoveries, the mysterious footprints, they had all led him here. Not to danger, not to more fear, but to understanding, to reconciliation, to home. Grace walked beside him, her hand in his. Their steps were slow, deliberate, savoring each moment. Around them, Cedarville bustled quietly with the gentle hum of holiday joy. Children laughed as they skated across the frozen pond, neighbors exchanged warm greetings, and the town's Christmas tree twinkled proudly, reflecting the hope that had returned to its streets. Michael stopped near the old wooden bridge where he had first confronted his fears. He looked at Grace, eyes soft but steady. I feel like I can finally breathe, he admitted. Grace smiled, her eyes bright with warmth. You faced everything, Michael. The truth, the pain, and you're still standing. That's what matters.
He nodded, taking in the crisp winter air. Then, in a quiet moment, he looked up at the falling snow, thinking of his mother, his sister Olivia, and his father, Jim. They were all part of a story that had been fractured, yet somehow, through courage, love, and Christmas's quiet magic, it was beginning to come together again. Jim arrived quietly, standing a few feet away, hands tucked into his coat. His eyes met Michael's, full of remorse and hope. "I'm proud of you," he said simply. Michael's chest tightened, but this time with warmth. "Thank you for staying, for coming back." Jim nodded, stepping closer. For the first time in years, the family felt whole, even if imperfect. They didn't need to fix every mistake, erase every hurt, or change the past. They only needed to face it, together, and move forward. The sun began to set, casting a soft golden light over the snow. Michael, Grace, and Jim stood together watching Cedarville glow in the quiet evening. Somewhere in the distance, the faint sound of carolers drifted through the streets, mingling with laughter, the crunch of boots in the snow, and the scent of pine. Michael exhaled, feeling a deep sense of peace. Christmas wasn't about miracles in the way fairy tales promised. They were real, but subtle, quiet, built in moments of courage, honesty, and connection. And this year, he had experienced it fully. He turned to Grace, smiling softly. "Merry Christmas." "Merry Christmas, Michael," she replied. Snowflakes landed gently on their shoulders, the cold biting lightly but pleasantly. The town shimmered, the stars began to twinkle above, and Michael realized that no matter what the future held, he had found the most important thing: home. And for the first time in a long time, his heart was truly at peace. Cedarville, covered in its winter blanket of snow, glowed quietly in the night, a town full of stories, love, and the promise that even the deepest wounds could heal with time, courage, and the spirit of Christmas.